All right, club audience, are you ready? Frank done did his mic check, so I'll consider him ready as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Weisberg with Heart in 3, 2, 1, begin.
I'm gonna switch it up, read an excerpt from my short story, The Book of Todd. This book was really going to light a fire under the Pope's ass. It was a hell of a story, and boy did I have a hell of a time writing the son of a bitch too. This was some good old fun, the kind of fun I used to have before I'd gotten myself into punch-up. Before I started writing The Book of Todd, my typewriter and I hadn't been getting along. Every time I sat down to write a scene or two for some studio, my typewriter seemed to be fighting me over every word. I'd try to dial up a fresh piece of paper to begin a scene, and she'd jam. Other times I'd hit the keys and only half the letters would show up. All the ink and oil in the world wouldn't have done me any good. My typewriter was doing it on purpose. She felt neglected. She felt used. I was spending my nights with her for the money. "You've changed," she'd say. Our relationship was becoming a sham. I was no better than the floozies who married tycoons on their last leg. Writing The Book of Todd was like taking a second honeymoon. We'd found each other again. Everything went back to the way it was. Organic, natural. The two of us would make love for entire days on end, without stopping to catch our breath. Her squealing as I pounded out page after page, our breathing in sync to the rhythm of the key strikes, while the rest of the world went on with itself. I picked the finished manuscript up from my desk and laid it down onto my kitchen table. I took a seat and called out to Jesus. He was in the bathroom saying some blessings over a batch of holy water he was going to take over to St. Patrick's. Jesus came walking out and took a seat on the other side of my table. "It's done," I said, nodding at the manuscript. Jesus placed his hands on the text, closed his eyes, and bowed his head. He sat there silent like that for a few moments, then opened his eyes and smiled at me. "James," he said, "it's fantastic." I jumped out of my chair. Hot damn, how long until the world gets a look at it and I get a novel? Jesus shrugged. I'd say 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years? What the hell are we waiting for? Have patience, my son. I cannot simply drop this new book of the Bible off on the front step of the post for it to run tomorrow. First, I have to turn the book into Aramaic. Then I have to transcribe it onto a scroll. And then the book must be placed in the research library over at NYU. There's a PhD student, a young man studying classics with a devout mother, who I'll direct towards the manuscript as soon as I can. But it's going to take him some time to translate the entirety of the book and realize its significance. He's a smart boy. It's just that his Aramaic isn't great. Jesus paused and smiled at me. "Come," he said, waving me over to him. "Let us give thanks for the success." I hit my cigarette and stayed put. The deal was, I write your book. You get my own book published. I don't see what some PhD student has to do with me. The book is not complete until it has been studied and read. We're talking about a lot more than just paper and ink here, James. I paced the length of my apartment. 5 years, what am I supposed to do till then? You will return to your life and write your novel. I'm in a groove here, Christ. I don't need 5 years to write my novel. Give me a few weeks, a month, I'll be done. Jesus stood up and walked towards me. "My son," he said. He was stern. "You want everything now. It's always now with you. Do not give in to temptation, James. You will be patient and have faith." I blew smoke through my nose. Do not give in to temptation. Temptation led me to write the book in the first place. I sat down at my table. Jesus sat down next to me. "James, are you familiar with the story of Jacob?" I shook my head. "Jacob was a lot like you. He was always looking for a way around anything you put in front of him. One day, he fell in love with a woman named Rachel. Her father owned a farm and would only allow Jacob to marry Rachel if he worked his farmland for 7 years first. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. He wanted her that badly. Nothing could sway him to do otherwise. And in the end, he got what he wanted." Jesus stood up. He eyed me for a few seconds. I eyed him back. "I'll be traveling to Spain for a week," he said, walking into the bathroom and gathering the holy water he'd prepared. "I need to restore some children's eyesight in Asturias and cure some lepers in Pedreguer. We'll talk more about this when I return." Jesus walked to the door, looked at me for a second over his shoulder, and left. I finished smoking my cigarette at my kitchen table. To hell with Jesus, I thought. He was always going on about temptation and faith. Where did ambition fit in? Jesus was supposed to be the Messiah. I figured he would understand what ambition meant to a man, that he had the same thirst in his heart that I had in mine. Then again, the guy was the savior his whole life, and he walked around the first 30 years of it not lifting a finger for anyone. Have faith, Jesus said. I knew all about faith. Faith was a proposition. It was a bargain you made, whether or not you ever received your end of it. And if you never got what you asked for, you weren't allowed to get upset about it. Otherwise, you never had faith to begin with. Well, faith could kiss my ass. I couldn't live with those terms. I was a writer. I expected something out of every experience I ever had. Thank you.